Hello everyone, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the General Electric CG400 camcorder and the Sony DCR-TRV103 camcorder. Although right now you may notice that there's only one here. That's because my Sony DCR-TRV103 that's going to arrive in a few days from now. And I wanted to record this first for reasons I'll mention in a minute. But this is the General Electric CG400 camcorder. It's a high 8 camcorder. I don't know if this is the original packaging or not, but this came out in I think 1996, and it's interesting for a couple of reasons. The most obvious of which is its features. Or I suppose lack thereof in this situation, because you may notice right away that this camera is completely featureless. It has no features whatsoever. Like, it has no picture effect, no nothing. I mean, it has an optical zoom, and you can control it with that instead of like a little lever, which is pretty nice, I guess. It has regular tape controls. Has your stop button, pause, blank, rewind, play, fast forward, and eject. And eject is highlighted in blue. Then you have two modes that you can use. There's play, which plays the tape you have in there, and then camera, which records. This is the tape mechanism. There's no tape in there. On the side, there is a composite video and audio output. I know that's called something, and I don't remember what it is right now, but it's mono audio because it's only one connector. This is apparently for an RF modulator, so you can plug this into a TV if you want. This lens is a variable zoom lens, which is a fixed aperture setting at f3.6 and at 10.8 at its maximum zoom. And you may notice that there are two lenses here. The first is the lens for the CCD, and the next is for the viewfinder, which is right there. Yeah, so when you're recording something, your picture may not come out centered because you're looking at it a little bit higher than your image is actually being recorded. But you know, I think to cut on costs as much as they could, this is just a straight pass-through lens, and they didn't include any kind of CRT or little screen in there, because that probably would have added to the cost. And based on this camera and what I know about it, which isn't a whole lot, but I think this is a low-end consumer item that, you know, people could just buy and pick up and record stuff. And they don't necessarily need picture effect or any of the fancier stuff that the Sony DCR-TRV103 and even other later Sony camcorders offer. But that is a very odd power button where it's a switch. Does that. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. And the interesting thing is that, well, it has a Nikon strap, which is a little unusual, but it's a GE camcorder, but the media that it uses, high 8, which is 8mm videotape. Actually, I have some. It's this fun stuff. It's compatible with the digital 8, which will be important later. But this is a Sony medium. I didn't realize this. Oh, like some of you who may have watched my video about my Sony DCR-TRV308 camcorder on my other channel, you may have remembered that I made a remark like, this is a Sony cassette and a Sony camcorder, and I realize now that this is a Sony medium, so pretty much only Sony made this, and Sony camcorders were basically the only cameras that had this. Now, of course, that may be contrary to what you might be seeing, because this is not a Sony camcorder, as you can tell by the logo on the bottom, or, you know, wherever it is. But that's because this more than likely uses a Sony tape mechanism. So it's all Sony going together. There was no other company that was making this other than companies that were permitted to do so by Sony, but it was mostly Sony making these products. So just wanted to clear that up in case that confusion arose. So this was basically, I believe, Sony permitted General Electric to manufacture a camera with this medium, and that's how that went. Now this is a very obscure camera. Like I had been looking for this for the better part of 2 years because my grandmother had this camera. Of course, it was broken, and the footage it output was not what I would consider watchable. Yeah, so it was this model, this exact model, and I looked for it on eBay and I couldn't find it, but I did find a more modern one. Well, actually, I found a Sony DCR-TRV103 model for about 50 bucks. And I wish I had gone up, I wish I had taken that offer, because that listing ended not long after I found it. And that was probably the cheapest camera that I could get. That was that model that was in working condition. The camera that I got was like $145. But yeah, I kind of wish I had taken that up then, but I didn't. And I got the Sony DCR-TRV103 instead, which you may have seen on the other channel, which I'm probably not going to upload to anymore. Yeah, so that's how that goes. As far as the camera's functionality, this one, it doesn't have any. Like, it doesn't really work at all. But if we look in the box, or in the case I should say, there's some space. I don't know if this is the actual case that came with the camcorder. Oh, and I broke the door. That's great. This may be a problem, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But it has this charger, which is a little interesting because it has two ends to it. It has this end which plugs into the camcorder, and then this end which plugs into the power dock. It has two batteries, neither of which work. There's a small battery, and then there is a large battery. I'm assuming this one has larger capacity, but from what I know, neither of them have any capacity. Yeah, so batteries don't work. The tape mechanism doesn't work either. In order to demonstrate that, I would have to plug it in using this thing, and what you would see is that the tape mechanism, when you put the tape in and you hit the eject button to close the mechanism, it makes a weird noise, and then it tries to close, it gets stuck, and then it spits the tape back out. Now, I have gotten it to actually accept the tape. I think like once or twice, where it actually got in there successfully, but it just immediately sput it back out. So this is capable of closing all the way. It just doesn't most of the time for some reason. Anyway, the reason why I'm recording this video now is because this camera, I bought it in used condition, which is defined as something that is in working condition. Working condition works fully as intended. Like everything works, like the tape mechanism would work, the batteries would work. Well, if the batteries didn't work, then it should have said so on the listing. But none of that was listed, it just said it was in used condition. Although I think I should have drawn more suspicion from it, because the listing was incredibly vague. Like I'm kind of convinced that the seller didn't even look at this when they went to test it or when they went to sell it. They just advertised it as in used condition, because this is in very good cosmetic condition, other than the door, which I broke. But it's like it has basically no scratches, no dirt, no scuffs, no nothing, which is incredible for a camera of this age. And I think that's why it was advertised as in used condition, but you know, used condition is defined as something that works, whereas this doesn't. It does output video. The CCD does work. I was able to connect it to my VCR, or DVD recorder VCR combo, which it's kind of a messy setup. I had another capture device, but that doesn't really work anymore. So I'm back to using that. It does output video. You know, video that you can expect from a camera from 1996. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. Has no features whatsoever, like I said. Flip the battery cover open. There's the plug where you can plug the thing into there. Yeah. I'm not going to bother plugging this in because there's not much you can do while it's plugged in. Other than like maybe see this little screen light up, and there's those two buttons light up. But that's pretty much it. Because it's just a, you know, put a tape in there, put a battery in there, hit record and go. That's pretty much how this camera is. And that's basically it. It's a very basic camcorder, but it has an interesting look. It's a little more grainy than footage that I'm used to coming out of Hi8, based on like videos I've watched and my own footage that I've recorded, which is part of the reason why I got this camera. But at the same time, it's not very useful if it can't record or do anything, which is why I initiated a return. And I said that the condition was in used condition, or I said that it was defined as in used condition, but my complaint was that the battery, or not the battery, the tape mechanism didn't work. I kind of wasn't expecting the batteries to work, especially if they're that old. But yeah, now this damage here might hinder my return process. They may say that I damaged it, or they may make the claim that because I damaged this, maybe I damaged the tape mechanism, and send it back, and then it's just a whole new mess. Well, all I can do is hope for the best. Anyway, I can put some footage in here of the video that this camera put out. It's probably just going to be tethered to my capture setup because I don't have a portable one anymore. Yeah, so you can see what the CCD outputs. You can see the grain that I'm talking about. It's kind of interesting in its own way. And it does output audio. That was another thing with this camera. I was originally thinking that these kind of cameras just don't record audio because the camera that my grandmother had, it didn't record audio at all. It didn't even record audio in the recordings of its previous owner, who was someone else in my family. Even when I took the tape, the Hi8 tape, and put it in my Sony DCR-TRV103, there was no audio for that, so the microphone in it must have broken a long time ago. But I was originally thinking that this kind of camera just didn't record audio, which it does, and I don't know why I ever thought that. But yeah, this does have a working microphone, which is good. It has working outputs, which is good. It doesn't have a working tape mechanism. That's probably a mechanical issue that can be fixed relatively easily, but I'm not a technician, I'm not an engineer of any kind, and I don't know how to fix this kind of thing, because it's very mechanical, and it's very small parts in close quarters, so if I would attempt to repair this, I would probably just end up doing more damage than what I wanted to fix. So I'm just going to send it back and get it over with, which hopefully I can do now that I've messed up the cover. So that's it for this camera. And I'll start up again when the Sony DCR-TRV103 arrives, which will be Alright, so I didn't go into a whole lot of detail with this camera, partially because I just didn't have a lot of time, and I already started the return process, so I need to get this returned as soon as I can. But right now, I'm recording just plugged into my DVD recorder. We have 26 or so seconds elapsed. And you can see the grain that I'm talking about. It has an interesting sort of look to it. It's kind of it's unlike the other cameras that I've seen. It's noisy, but it's, I don't know, it's interesting in its own way. Also, you can notice the what's it called, the zoom thing. It's a zoom, like a manual zoom control instead of like a lever or an automated lever, so I can zoom as quickly or as slowly as I want, and it has no manual input, or it has no, I guess I should say it has no automated input. But in order to really give you a sense of how this thing works, I should give you like a demo video of some sort, which I can't go outside and give you test footage because I can't drag my DVD recorder outside. I can't drag this computer outside because this capture device here doesn't work. Also, that's my Sony DCR-TRV103, which is in working condition, works very well. So I guess I can just give you a demo video, see how that turns out. Yeah. Okay, it should be working now. Hopefully I can render this out to a 60 frames per second stream, because I'm recording this with my other camera, my DSLR. I'm recording in 24 frames per second, and this is clearly a 60 frames per second video. So anyway, this is a Nokia phone. It's a Nokia E-series phone with a very reflective battery cover. It's from around 2010 or 2011, I think. And it's interesting because phones from that time period, they were pretty interesting in the features they had. Like this was like a mix of next generation phone technology. Like this has some features that are very similar to what phones nowadays have, but they also have kind of an accent, if you will, of the previous generation of technology, as evidenced by the dedicated keypad and dedicated call and answer and hang up buttons. It has a dedicated home button and a dedicated contacts button. Also has a big selector button in the middle. On the side there is a volume up and down, or volume up and down button. I don't know what the middle one is for. On the back it's just a battery cover. And this is back when phones, you were encouraged to replace the battery if there was something wrong with it, or to swap it out with a higher capacity one. This battery, and actually the only way to get to the SIM card slot was to take out the battery, and then there you go. Oh, this is interesting. So this is a T-Mobile SIM card. Trying to get it, yeah. So this is a T-Mobile SIM card. This was back when they were kind of big, like about I think almost the size of an SD card compared to like the one in my modern iPhone 7 Plus that has a I think it's called a mini SIM card, and it's way small. It's like the size of a micro SD card, if you've ever seen one of those. But this is back when they were a lot larger. This is not active anymore, obviously. But this was a T-Mobile device, which hopefully you can see that. But it was a device that was, I guess this was from T-Mobile. This phone was obtained through T-Mobile. And it has some pretty interesting T-Mobile specific features. I don't remember how exactly this goes back in. Just going to stuff it in there. It doesn't matter. This SD card doesn't work anyway. The phone does work. It's just not charged right now. And I don't really have the time to wait for it to charge. I may cover this a little more in depth in a future video. Again, phones from this era were pretty interesting in the features that they included. And in the things that they did. And if you look up like 2010s or like maybe late 2000s phones, they had some interesting things. Like they had those like flip out phones with the phones with like that was just a screen, or like just a screen like this, and then a keyboard that flipped out from below it like that. And I actually I had some family members that had phones like that, and I remember the flip-out screen made it a lot easier to type on. And I remember liking that a lot because it was a tactile feel. Like you could feel like you're pushing the button. It felt more natural than like typing on a touch screen. Which that was interesting. That was an interesting time period for phones and technology. But now we are in the 2020s, and now this is obsolete. Actually, this phone will be getting close to obsolete in a couple of years. Yeah. Anyway, this has been a demo video of the General Electric camcorder, and I will see you when the Sony DCR-TRV103 camcorder arrives. I'm back, and I brought this. Yes, the camcorder has arrived in a Tricon case, which is more than likely not the case that came with it, but who cares. So I will admit I've already taken this out and looked at it, but, you know, I don't think it matters, really. It comes with the manual, digital video camera recorder. I wasn't expecting it to come with a manual. Has some stuff in here. It's not in very good condition. Yeah. What you really came for is this. This here is the real deal. This is what we have been waiting for. It also came with some other stuff, like this battery, and this extra info lithium battery, which, I mean, we can try it out. Yeah, it doesn't work. I have verified that this camera works. I've tried it out. What I did do is I bought this absolutely massive high capacity battery. It is equivalent to that of a, I think it's NP-F950 battery, which was the highest capacity battery that Sony offered at the time of selling this camera. It's more modern. It doesn't use info-lithium technology. It uses lithium-ion, though it probably has a chip that emulates the info-lithium system. You can click the button, and there's a percentage mark. The interesting thing about this battery is that because it's modern, you can charge it. You don't necessarily have to use the charger for the camera. You can charge it over micro USB. And you can also plug in something into the USB port it has in case you want to charge something extra with it, like your phone. But this is like basically designed to emulate the I think it's the high capacity battery that was offered with this camera at the time. And in doing so, I don't even think these other batteries are even worth taking a look at, because this is probably the end-all battery when it comes to this camera. And you will see, like, on its own, this camera is not that big, but when I put on this absolutely giant battery, it adds to the weight of the unit significantly. But it does work. I verified that it works, but look at how much it sticks out. Yeah, that is a pretty insane battery. And this battery offers super high capacity, like, well, actually it says on here. It says it can offer up to 10 hours, which I do believe that's true. I think it can probably do that, but that means it's better than pretty much every electronic device I have combined. Like my most recent laptop, it's from 2019, it's a Surface Laptop 2. Its battery is supposed to last for like 14 hours, but it only lasts for like 1 or 2 hours because of a very bad software design that Microsoft has still yet to fix. Even a year later, my phone, now being several years old, only lasts until like towards like the afternoon, like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, before the battery starts getting low. Yeah, and even my other camcorder that I have, it doesn't last for as long as this, although to be fair, it did come with a high capacity battery, but it just stopped working. I can probably order another one, but yeah. But this makes it a heavy duty, I guess not heavy duty, but makes it a go-to for battery life. Like, I can record all day with this thing, probably for like the 10 hours it advertises. Whereas with this camera I'm recording with, I have to plug it into a dummy battery and run it off of the wall charger. See? Because its battery lasts for, I don't know, maybe an hour while recording. Although I think it's even less sometimes. So I just plugged it directly into the wall, and I'm running it off of the wall charger, because I really just didn't want to deal with having it die in the middle of me recording. But this camera can last for like it puts modern devices to shame. Like, it puts my Surface laptop, which is from last year, to shame. It puts my current camera to shame. It's like this has such incredible battery life, is that like it is on par with, and in some cases surpasses, modern camcorders and modern devices in general. Now, of course, you may be saying like, oh, well, that's not a fair comparison because this is a brand new battery. That's fair. Yes, it is a brand new battery, but there are like this high capacity 10-hour battery. That was a thing that Sony was selling at the time of this camera's release, which is about 1999, I think. So, like, that was real. That was a real thing. This is just a modern version of that battery. It probably offers similar capacity, with newer technology like lithium-ion instead of info-lithium. But again, like the battery life, insane. Like I'd been using it for, like I used it for a couple hours today, and the battery didn't drain seemingly at all. Actually, I ran out of tape before the battery got even close to draining a little bit. On the camera itself, I've noticed that my camera is very bad with dark objects. Like it just flat out won't show them like this. Actually, the bag, it's like totally black when it's not. But yeah, anyway, on the camera itself, you have buttons here. The buttons light up when you're in VTR mode because they're your tape controls. On here, you have a Sony Smart Accessory hot shoe. It has connectors on it, which is why it's called a hot shoe. Actually, can you see that? I don't have a larger zoom lens attached at the moment, but yeah, there it is. It has connectors on it. I'm gonna bring it closer. Yeah, there it is. It has a manual focus ring, so you can adjust your focus manually when you're recording, which I think is pretty nice. It has a pretty nifty lens cap. I can't stand it up. Which it's a little damaged, but it stays on pretty well. This has a precision. This might be a little out of focus, and if so, I apologize. But this has a precision CCD. It has a. I think it's. This has a lens mount, so you can mount it to other external lens accessories if you so desire. It has a stereo microphone, which I think that's pretty good. I think I made a remark in my camcorder video about the Sony DCR-TRV103 video, saying that the camera had a stereo microphone, but it doesn't. It had a mono microphone, and that was just incorrect information. Oops. On the side, which I guess fittingly I've turned it onto its side, you have your tape mechanism there. You have microphone line in and audio line out, so you can plug in headphones to listen to your audio, and you can also plug in an external microphone. I'll be demonstrating that later. Has a strap which is in very good condition, although I don't think this is original, probably a replacement, which I'm fine with. The tape mechanism, which actually works very well, has no problems whatsoever. There's a LANC jack, where this camera could be sold with a tripod that had external controls like zoom, record, and all that. And some of them, they also came with a remote, which you could control with this. This did not come with a remote. But this LANC jack is for plugging it into a tripod that supports those external controls. And you have a eject thing. You pull it down and it controls the eject mechanism. I don't know if I can demonstrate this well. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Alright, that's a little better. Sort of. Anyway, I can pull this down. The tape mechanism is insanely quiet. The one in my Sony DCR-TRV103 is a lot louder, and that's actually newer than this camera. Although at the same time, this is a digital 8 camcorder, whereas the other one is a high 8, just analog high 8 camcorder. I've been using this tape with both for a long time, and I really should replace this or get more, but I've been using this for both, and this is compatible with digital 8. And I used this with this camera earlier, and it worked fine. I can put that in there. Yeah, it's super quiet. Yeah, that's one of the things that amazed me about this camera is how quiet the tape mechanism is when it's loading. As far as operation, it's a little louder. That's because this is recording digital video to a Hi8 tape. And with digital video recording, it has to spin the tape a little bit faster because it's recording more information to the tape. So you technically have less recording time with when you're recording digital. Like I think with regular Hi8 analog, with regular analog Hi8 tape, you have like 2 hours of recording time or more, and I think with this you only get like 90 minutes because it has to spin the tape faster, and thus it's using more tape. I think if you have unless you're shooting a lot, like if you have a lot of things to record, I can see where that can become a problem, and you can probably easily combat that by buying more tapes. This is the rear of the camera. It has this lock and standby switch. So when you're in the recording mode, you have it on standby and it lets you press the button. When you have it on recording mode and you put it to lock, it switches the camera to off regardless of the position of this main power control here. Also, I find this placement of the power control to be a little annoying because you have to like reach in front of the camera to adjust it. If I'm holding it like this, I have to reach in front of the camera and do that, which is a little annoying at times. Why is this not working? It's odd. This isn't working for some reason. Oh, because it's in the lock mode. Oh my god. But yeah, when it's in the lock mode, it prevents you from actually. Well, first of all, it prevents you from even pushing the button, so as to not engage the recording mode accidentally. But you can switch it into VTR mode when it's in this, and then all these buttons light up. You might be able to hear the whine of this viewfinder CRT, and then you can play back your tape. And now I guess we have to get into the functionality of the camera. This is a very interesting and actually very functional camera. This is going to be a little awkward, but I'm just doing my best here under my conditions. So I can open that and then do that. Oh, it's in the lock mode. There we go. So when it's in the lock mode, it works in the other positions. We're in off, and well, it works in VTR mode because that's the only option you have that's not off. And when it's on standby mode, you can press record and do all the fun stuff you want. Actually, I should get into the options this camera has. It has on this side here, it has a LCD screen, which is good for 1999. It has a data code, a 5-second recording timer, which I think is like, if you put it down all the way, actually this is what it does. If you have it on this mode right here, it'll just record constantly until you push the button again. If you put it to this secondary mode here, it'll record only as you have the button pushed down, so it records as long as you have the button pushed down, and if you let go of the button, it'll stop recording. This third mode here makes it so you only record in 5-second intervals. So you push the button, and you can let go, and it'll record for 5 seconds, and then it'll stop. And then if you want to record again, you have to push the button, it'll go for 5 seconds, then it'll stop. I'm just going to keep it on that. There's digital effects, which is actually really cool. Picture effects, which I haven't looked at. There's display, which controls I think what's seen on the display here. There's end search, which I think search for blank ends of the tape. And then there's the menu, which brings up some good options. And this backs up its setting. I don't have the watch battery in there currently, but I'm going to go to the store tomorrow and get it replaced. And when you close this viewfinder, it turns on this, which has a little CRT in it. And I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, there's the CRT. You can see my feet because I'm using my knee to support this because I have no better way to do this. But yeah, that's an actual CRT. It has the whine of the CRT, which some people can hear, others can't. I can hear it, and the camera can probably hear it. My Sony DCR-TRV103 does not have that, so that's interesting. That's interesting. But yeah, it's black and white, so it's not that amazing, I guess. Also, one thing I noticed is that in this mode, or I guess in this configuration, when you have this giant battery on here, you can't bring this up to your face and start recording because the battery will jam you in the face before you get to use this. So what I did was I just brought the viewfinder up a little bit like that, and I recorded with it a little farther down, but I had it basically like that. Then I can record using the viewfinder like so. I should seriously do this on a table. I apologize if this is like out of focus most of the time. I'm trying to work with autofocus, and the autofocus on my camera is not the best. So I have to use manual focus instead. Anyway, you can open up this screen, and it has a reasonably large LCD screen here. It's about the closest close-up you can get using the lens that I have. I can attach a larger one, but I don't want to right now. Yeah, so that is the LCD screen. You can see stuff through it. There we go. Has a variable zoom lens. Zooms reasonably quickly. Oop, what happened? Yeah, that's a little odd. Yeah, my other camera has a tendency to just shut off when it's doing stuff. Who knows? It has a variable zoom lens, and it has digital zoom enabled for some reason, which is probably the biggest scam in photography history. Because if you zoom in all the way, and then when you get to digital zoom, it just enhances the image until all you see is just nothing but pixels. And on a camera like this, which has low resolution to begin with, that's not a good thing. So I keep digital zoom off. This camera just defaults to its original settings because there's no battery in there to back them all up. Anyway, I can hit the menu button, and well, actually, I think I can take that away now. It looks a little better with that. Should have like a legitimate lighting setup here, but I don't. Okay, yeah, there we go. So it has some settings here. There's digital zoom, which I talked about. Might be a little easier if I plugged it into a TV, but I'm not going to do that right now. There's digital zoom, which I'm going to turn off because, again, it doesn't really look the best. There's 16:9 wide mode. Now this camera actually has a 16:9 CCD. It just crops to 4:3 when it's in the regular mode. But when you switch it to 16:9 mode, you may notice that it's actually widening the frame a little bit. Like actually, if I bring this over here, this little bag over here as an example. So the strap is invisible in the regular 4:3 mode, but then it's visible in the 16:9 mode. So you can see it's actually expanding the frame when it goes to 16:9 mode, which I think that's pretty nice. Although the downside is that it letterboxes basically the whole LCD screen. On the viewfinder, it does the exact opposite. So instead of letterboxing on the viewfinder, it just crops, or it doesn't crop at all. It just squishes it to fit the frame. So you may notice that the image looks more compressed when 16:9 mode is on. So yeah, it compresses the image on the viewfinder, which is a little odd. Well, I guess in hindsight that's not really odd, because my other camera, my Sony DCR-TRV103 does that too. I guess I was more surprised by the fact that it letterboxed the image, like the whole image here, on the LCD screen, which I wasn't really expecting because I didn't see that on my other camera. Yeah, but I'm going to keep it off of 16:9 wide mode, because when it does that, it letterboxes, well, it tries to fit everything in that frame, including the menus, and when it does that, it's harder to see. So I'm just going to keep it in the regular mode. Also, with this mode, in this mode, it keeps steady shot on, which I like. Yeah, there's steady shot. It's on, and that is very good. This is actually a good example of how this camera is up to par. In fact, it may surpass other cameras in this department, is image stabilization. This has an optical image stabilizer, and it's probably one of the best there is. And I would say it's probably on par with, and maybe better than, actually definitely is better than this camera, which has a built-in image stabilizer. However, the camera that has the absolute best image stabilization I've ever used is the Canon Vixia HF800, I think, but that has flat out the best image stabilization I have ever seen. Like you can hold the camera handheld all the way zoomed in, and it'll look like it's on a tripod. There will be no shaking whatsoever. Like it's amazing. I've never seen anything like it. This camera doesn't have that, but it gets super close. It gets very, very close. But the best one I've ever used is probably the one from that camcorder, which I'm not using right now, but whatever. Alright. Then there's night shot light. Yeah, this camera does have night shot. I'll give you some test footage later. But right now, you can see that night shot when I turn it on, and it's this little switch right here. When I turn it on, it makes a satisfying little click, and then you'll notice that everything on the screen turns green. Actually, I should adjust the ISO so you can see this better. So you can see that it turns everything green. That's because it's using like infrared vision to see things. Now this camera, unlike other cameras, uses a more directional, like square beam of light rather than like a dispersed circular thing. So it's better. I think it's better if you're like filming more direct things like that. Like if you're filming something that's telephoto and far away, then this is better because it's more directional. But then if you're trying to film like a wide scene where you're in the darkness and you have night shot enabled, it may look a little unusual because there's like a big square in the middle. But yeah, I also don't believe there was a period of time when Sony released where Sony's what's it called, night shot was it was powerful enough to see through certain objects, I guess you can say, because the night shot infrared beam was so powerful, had essentially X-ray vision. So that was a problem, and then Sony recalled that, but not all of the models made it into recall, and then some of them are still out on eBay, I think. This does not have that. This I believe this is after they depowered the system. But this is also seems to be the newer version of Night Shot, or the more advanced version, where it seems to retain colors a little more, or retain colors a little better. You may notice that the colors actually seem to be somewhat retained when Night Shot is enabled. Like if I turn it off, you can still see the brown color of the wall, somewhat, and like the kind of beige color of the carpet and the black wires and the white wire. Then when I turn Night Shot on, that color is still somewhat retained. It's not like all green. You can still kind of see a brownish tone in the wall and a beige color in the on the carpet. Also, my sweater, it's a little bit red. I mean, it's, of course, night shot is being directly beamed onto it, but it's some of the red is retained. This is my, well, it was red earlier. You probably saw it. Yeah, so it retains a little bit of color. Also, there is a slow shutter button right next to it. So you can push that. It'll basically slow the shutter a little bit. Makes the image brighter, but it makes it a little more smeary with motion blur. That's night shot 1. Then if I put the shutter on night shot 2, it totally blows out the image in this lighting condition. Like, actually, I can probably turn the lights off. Yeah, lights are totally off here, and of course the screen turned off. These cameras are just fun sometimes. But yeah, that's night shot, I think, just regular. Where you can see, well, this camera also has very good low light performance. Like if I take this light away, this camera cannot see that at all, whereas this camera, it can. Also, if I aim it over there, it's a little harder, and I think part of the reason why you couldn't see that was because this camera, again, not very good with low light. I've realized that. Yeah, this camera is incredibly good with low light, and I think this is yet another area where it's putting newer camcorders and newer cameras to shame. Because even without night shot, it has incredible low light sensitivity. Like, actually, it's rated at 0 lux. So it has very good low light sensitivity. But if I turn on night shot again, there's regular night shot. Has the beam, so you can, turn that around, point it at certain things, and then you can illuminate stuff. When I turn on the slow shutter button, that goes to night shot 1, where it lets in more light and you can see things better. Then you can do night shot 2, which increases the brightness, and you can see things even better. Now, the motion blur is a little more extreme. You may be noticing that there's a lot of motion blur. So this application isn't always useful. Also, you can't use the shutter adjustment button in regular mode. You have to go into digital effects for that. And what I noticed is that it actually does. I think it opens the shutter a little bit, because I noticed that the image got a little brighter when I used the motion blur effect, I think it was. But yeah, that's basically it for night shot. But again, sometimes you don't even need it because it has such good low light sensitivity. But it's there if you need it. Also, this camera, unlike the Sony DCR-TRV103 that I have, does not have a halogen spotlight. So it doesn't have a little light bulb built into it that you can just toggle on and off whenever you want. I think with this accessory hot shoe here, you can mount a spotlight there if you so desire, but I don't have one to demonstrate, so you can just see its low light capabilities without that sensor, or without that spotlight. Alright, then there's, okay, so I covered night shot. Anyway, actually what I was going to get to was the night shot light thing that shows up here. I think what that does is it turns off the infrared beam, so it's just it's just picking up infrared light and not emitting its own infrared beam. I think that's what's going on here. Let's see. Yeah, that's what's going on. It's just picking up infrared light. But of course you want this on so you can see things better, or you can see in low light situations better. An LCD set, there's LCD backlight, there's brightness normal, and then there's bright. You may be noticing that the LCD screen gets a little bit brighter with the brighter setting. I just keep it at normal. Then there's LCD color, which you can adjust. When I turn it all the way down, it looks very unsaturated, and when I turn it all the way up, this camera has a very odd tendency to turn off, but again, I think that's just a thing with cameras like this. They turn off after a few minutes, even if you're using them. It could be a power saving feature, because that doesn't tend to happen when it's recording, where it'll just turn off the camera when you're not recording, even if you're in the menus, to save battery power. I don't think that'll be a problem in this case. But again, if I adjust the backlight color and I turn it all the way up, you can see the colors start to get very saturated. And the colors, they don't necessarily look accurate when you do this. And I don't think this carries over into the final product you get on the tape. But the carpet looks a little more orange, and the background looks a little more orange as well. The best place to keep it is in the middle, where the little marker is. Right there. Yeah. Now moving on to tape set, there's audio mode, where you can set it to either 12-bit or 16-bit. I just keep it at 12-bit because that's what it came with. There's remain auto, where I think that's where it detects how much tape is remaining in the cassette. In your setup menu, you can do your clock set. If I do this, well, really, it'll retain the settings, I think. Maybe, I'm not sure, but I think it'll retain the settings of the clock as long as I keep this big battery in there. The small battery is really just for retaining the settings when the big battery is out. I could be wrong though, and it could be that this backs up the clock settings only to the watch battery, and it doesn't use this big battery at all to save those settings. But I could be wrong. There's Auto TV On, which is for laser link, where this camera, you could buy a feature, or you could buy a device where you would turn on laser link here. That's glowing red now. You could turn on laser link, and what that would do is that you have this little box that you connect to your TV. And you would leave that in front of your television set. You would put this on your coffee table, or where people put your feet on your couch. You put that there facing your TV set, and then you turn this on. Then it sends an infrared signal from the infrared lights on here, and it beams that over to I think it's the device, the box. And then you can play back your footage that you shot using the VTR mode, like so. And again, using your light up tape controls. Maybe you could do a camera stream or something, but I think that was less important to people than conveniently beaming your videos through IR light to your TV and not having to connect it to your VCR, which that's a pretty good feature. But the Auto TV On is for when you turn on when you turn on laser link. I keep calling it super laser link, but I think it's just called laser link. But when you turn on laser link, if you had this enabled, what it would do is when you turned it on, it would send a signal to the device that receives the IR signal. Then it would turn on the TV automatically as soon as you push the laser link button. I don't have a TV to demonstrate that with because I don't have the device. Then there's TV input, in which the outputs on this computer, which this camera has several outputs on it. But the outputs here, like the composite video and audio out and S-video out, they can also be used as inputs if you are streaming with the firewire cable, which is actually, I think I forgot to mention, but it is oddly placed at the front, which is kind of weird. But you can plug in something here, and then stream that to your computer as DV video, which I think is pretty cool. The camera turned off. I hope I didn't damage the battery casing area when I leaned it back. Nope, I just engaged the lock switch. Every time I do that, I'm worried that I'm worried that I'm just going to damage this thing. Anyway, back to the menus. yeah, that's what the TV input thing is for. You can set it to video 1, video 2, or video 3. Actually, now that I think about it, this could be related to the laser link thing, where your TV would automatically turn on and it would go to input 1, 2, or 3, depending on which input you have your laser link device connected to. That could be what that's related to. There's letter size, which is exactly what it sounds like. It just makes the letters bigger, like that. There's demo mode, which click that, see what it does. I don't know, maybe I have to start doing stuff for demo mode to work, but it doesn't. And then there's the etc. tab, which is world time. We can adjust, I think it's where you can adjust it to be ahead or behind world time, maybe. Something. And there's beep, which controls the beep of this. There's melody, where it beeps for everything, like even the menu modes. Then there's normal, where it only beeps for like operations, like turning it on or off, or for recording. And then there's just off, totally, like it makes no sound whatsoever. I keep it on melody, because why not? Commander, I don't know what that's for. I'll put a card up here, because I don't remember what this is right now. It'll probably be better if I just put a card up after I do some research on what it is. There's display, where this is specifically for if you want to plug this into a VCR, or if you want to stream this camera's output to your computer using the DV or the firewire port, I should say. This would use this would make it so if you're on display mode and you have it on LCD, the only thing that would be shown on the VCR when you have it connected to the outputs, when you have this camera connected to the outputs, is what the CCD sees. You wouldn't see any extra menus or anything. But when you put it on video out /LCD, it would put out what the CCD sees as well as the menus. Like basically this screen would show up on your TV screen. Yeah. Sometimes I think it's best to have it on that. Recording lamp, I think that's like for the halogen spotlight I was talking about, where you could mount it to the top. I'm going to keep that off for now. There's indicator. Oh yeah, so this camera has a backlight indicator. It is right there. And then if I switch it to on, it goes on. And it shows your battery life status, the time, and then handycam. I think it no, I think that's the only thing it shows. Maybe it shows like how much tape you have remaining or something. But there's really no reason for it to be on. Yeah. And then that's it. That's it as far as the settings. Now we get into the more fun stuff. That's the digital effect stuff, which it might be easier to demonstrate if I plug this into a TV rather than just have you look at the tiny screen. Some of you may recognize this TV from the camcorder video. It still has the line going through it, but it has audio-video outputs, no, inputs I should say. So I can plug my camera into this directly and you can see what I'm doing. The black crush here is real. Anyway, I'm going to turn this on. There we go. And yeah, there's the camera. That's pretty much it. You can zoom in and out. Actually, if I turn on the... there we go. Yeah, now you can see this better. Also, if I show you the 16:9 mode, because now this is on a bigger screen, so you can see it a little better. No, it's not it. Maybe go here. Go on, and then as you can see it expands the frame a little bit, but you can use your TV set to unstretch this image and it fills the full frame. So you can see there's that, and there's that. It expands the frame. Although, and you may notice that there's a little more vignette around the edges of the frame with the 16:9 wide mode. That's just bound to happen. I'm going to keep it in the 16:9 mode because why not? Because this is oops. I switched it to the standby switch again. Yeah, but this is yeah, looks a little better on this TV screen than it does on the LCD screen, where it just looks like a letterboxed image and it makes everything smaller. Yeah, I really should have had this connected earlier, but you can better see what I'm talking about as far as like night shot, and the slow shutter stuff. Yeah, it's pretty good, and I'll give you some demo footage later, so you can really see these in action. Anyway, the digital effects stuff is really interesting. There's the still image, which I believe what that will do is if I select this, it'll do that, and then what that will do is that'll basically just have the still image on the screen, but then it'll overlay the audio track, the current audio track. So it'll keep the image that it captured on the screen while simultaneously allowing, while simultaneously keeping the microphone open so I can talk over it. And also I can adjust the opacity so I can make it go away completely if I want. Or I can have it slightly overlaid if I want, in case that's something I want to do. Like I can continue recording while that's in the background, or I can like make a interesting transition. It's pretty cool. Also, I think all the buttons are silent once you're in once you're actually recording. All right, so that's still. Then there's flash, which basically just reduces the frame rate. Yeah, it's interesting. It reduces it from 60 frames a second to like less. Although you're probably not noticing a difference between this and that on your end because I'm recording this at 24 frames per second. But you may be able to notice that it gets a little choppier with every time I go up. When I go up all the way, makes it so it's extremely choppy. Yeah. Then there's Lumi. I think that's short for luminescence, and that's probably by far the most interesting one on here. Because if you zoom in on something, like say I want to zoom in on this bag, and I do that, it'll take like an image of that bag. Then it'll overlay it and keep that on the screen while I'm still recording. So I can zoom in and out, and as you can see, that bag is still there. I can turn on like night shot and all that, and do all the night shot stuff. You can see that actually I can't do the shutter adjustment, but you can see that bag is still there, and I can adjust the opacity of it. Like I can make it gone completely, or I can make it just ever so slightly visible, like that for like an artistic effect, or I can adjust the opacity to be completely there, or oh, that's interesting, it records like a solarized effect for this, and then you can adjust like the opacity of the overlaid image. But yeah, I think if it's like a slight effect like this, it kind of looks more artistic. It looks like a drawing of some sort. I think it looks pretty cool. Anyway, there's a trail, which does that. Basically just trails the image by overlaying one image over the other, and all that. You can adjust the intensity of the trail like this. If I turn it up, I think that's either, hold on. If I turn it all the way down, what does that do? So that like makes the trail non-existent. And if I turn it all the way up, it adjusts the intensity of the trail. It makes it more intense. So I can do that, and then as I keep turning it up, the trail gets more overlaid. Oop, it turned off. Again with the lock button, I keep bumping it, and it yeah, keeps pushing it into like lock mode. Anyway, that's trail. Then there's slow shutter, which is the effect I was talking about earlier, where it I think it increases the shutter speed of the camera, or decreases rather. So that's shutter speed 1, and with shutter speed 2, as I go up, you may notice that it's increasing the brightness of the image a little bit. So I think it's actually opening up the shutter just a little bit to let in more light to create a true and authentic slow shutter effect, which I think is pretty cool. And it is in fact separate of the night shot thing. Yeah. And there's oh, I think that's it actually. Yeah. So this has some pretty good, actually very good digital effects. I think the reason why it has so many and so many unique ones is because this was meant as like your entire media production device. Like you used this as your only means to make video. Like if you're going to do any editing, it had to be in camera, because oops. So for those who just wanted to make video, but I guess at the same time didn't want to pay for such an expensive thing to do it with, they just got this camera that can do all of it in camera. You can do all of your editing in camera, and depending on how well you do it, your tape is then ready for publish as soon as you stop recording. Yeah, so that's what the digital effects are for. They're for basically to create like video effects that you commonly see in videos, but that's for in-camera effect, because that's the only video editing means that people had back then, or that a lot of people had back then. So yeah. Then there's picture effect, which is, here. Like what you've seen on my other camera, where it's like you can add different picture effects. Now, something really cool that you can do is do a digital effect within a picture effect. So you can do like that, or maybe like that. See, yeah, that's pretty cool, isn't it? There's trail. All right, so you can do like a digital effect within a picture effect. So that sepia makes the image look a little more faded and brown than it actually does. There's black and white, which basically is what the viewfinder sees. There's solarize, which like I talked about earlier. I think it like increases the contrast of the picture a lot, and then over sharpens the image as much as possible. And then if you go into digital effects, you can do all sorts of cool stuff here, like a trail of the solarize effect, or let's see, slow shutter to make it look a little more blurry and all that. Like that, see? It's pretty cool, I think. Or do that. Which is interesting, and you can adjust the opacity of it. Yeah. And there's flash, which decreases the frame rate. Still, which does the still image thing I talked about. And yeah, so this has some pretty interesting picture effects, and if you combine them with digital effects, if you do a digital effect within a picture effect, that looks pretty good. Then there's slim, which like compresses the image. There's stretch, which of course it actually does not make the image wider. Just makes it look weird. Pastel. There's mosaic. I think that's it actually. Yeah. Yeah, this has some really nice picture effects and digital effects and all that. And I think it's like a real nice thing. Also, I think this has like a built-in green screen effect. Actually, I think I just showed it. I think it was the Lumi thing. Also, another thing that this camera has is autofocus. This thing has incredible autofocus. Again, I think it's better than a lot of cameras today, which that's really saying something, because you would think that after 20 years, technology would have advanced to make it so that autofocus would become better. But it's actually, this camera, I think, probably demonstrates the prime of autofocus. And even on my Sony DCR-TRV103, which is considered a lower end model of this one, or compared to this one, that still has really snappy and really effective autofocus. If I zoom in all the way on this Castar thing, it works really well. And then if I turn it over there, I don't even have to worry about losing focus of the image for maybe longer than a second. Like less than a second, and it already focused on the other thing. And then if I move it back over there, it moves back in focus immediately. And it can do like very up close macro stuff or far away stuff like that super quickly. And that's like a super, that's like a very good feature that I think maybe this feature only exists for the highest end of cameras that exist right now. I guess at the same time, this was Sony's highest end camera that they were selling in 1999. So it had a lot of features that are very advanced, probably very advanced for their time, and are still considered pretty advanced now, I think. Like as far as this autofocus is incredibly good. It probably has this and the Sony DCR-TRV103 probably have the best autofocus out of any other camera that I have. And you can see why it earns those results. Like, it does not take autofocusing lightly. Also on the side, you might have seen it, but there's a switch to turn on manual focus, or I think it's push auto. So if I turn on manual focus, that engages like the little focus ring that I showed you earlier. So that makes it so autofocus is completely disabled. But if maybe you're in a situation where autofocus isn't working all that well, you can adjust it smoothly with this little knob. And I think that's really nice, because on the other cameras, like again, my Sony DCR-TRV103, the focus was controlled by a jog wheel, and it was very uncomfortable to use and not very good. So it basically made manual focusing like a joke. But this is like legit autofocus, not autofocus, manual focus. Like my camera that I'm recording this on right now has a true autofocus ring, which makes it easy to keep the image in focus. I don't have to adjust like a jog wheel or anything, and it keeps it smooth if I want to transition to maybe the background. Or if I want to, like, again, if I want to do something specific, like maybe have the background in focus but not the foreground, or maybe do like something that I'm doing here, where the foreground doesn't have to be in focus but the background does. You can do that. You are given a lot of opportunity here to play around with this and do what you want. But again, the option is there for you for autofocus, and I think that's a little faster and arguably a little more smoother than this manual focus is. But you know, this manual focus is actually really nice. If I do push auto, which I think I have to put it back in auto mode for it to work, this is for like if you want the focus to stop hunting when you're doing stuff. So if I click push auto, it will keep that there. Then it won't adjust the focus again unless I push the push auto button. which is good for like if you pan out to something, or maybe you want to pan, like maybe you want to do like maybe the background is out of focus, but you want to use autofocus to get your foreground in focus, and then you do like a pan in like that, so your camera doesn't focus on the background, but it instead keeps the foreground in focus. Also, if you push the button again, it'll lock on to the next object. You hold it down long enough and it'll focus in, and then it will not go and refocus anything until you push the button again. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so that is it. Yeah, so that's nice. That's nice. Yeah, and I think that's it. I think I've like demonstrated all of the features that this thing has. There are a few things that I don't know what they're for, but I can probably figure it out, and then I will put it in the video. But yeah, that is. All right, I'm like actually running out of space on my SD card to record. So, all right, that's it. That's it for like my demonstration of the camera. I guess you can let me know in the comments if you thought my demonstration was a little too quick or not in depth enough or whatever. I'm free to suggest. I guess I should say I'm open to suggestions. But for now, I'm going to show you some. Well, actually, yeah. For now, I'm going to record some test footage, and I'm going to capture them using firewire. Or I'm going to capture them to my computer using firewire. So we will see how that goes. This is the 4x3 sample. See that steady shot is enabled. Look at these little dolls. Who knows what's going on with them? So this is an example of night shot where if I turn off the light and then turn that thing on, so you can see lots of stuff, things that the light cannot see. Now what you may notice is that this is directional, like there's like a box, like a square, that's like planted on a wall rather than like the newer circular, what's it called, night shot, where it's dispersed throughout the whole frame and not directed at something. Now this is useful if you're trying to film something that's like directional like that's zoomed in, but it doesn't look the best when it's zoomed all the way out, because then like part of your frame looks brighter, and it's brighter in that one square than the rest of your frame. But I don't know, sometimes that's better, but I prefer the newer version of Night Shot. Also, there's Night Shot 1, which increases your shutter speed. Then Night Shot 2 increases it to like this, which is basically indistinguishable. Yeah. I think Night Shot regular is better. And when you turn that on, yeah. Yeah, also, it seems to retain colors a little marginally well. Everything still looks pretty green once you have Night Shot on, just because of the infrared light. But yeah, I think it is. It's still pretty green, but at least you can see your frame. At least you can see what you're shooting. This is my collection of cameras, I guess. There's the Sony DCR-TRV103 that I was talking about. I guess now I can give you a demonstration of the external microphone ability. Because if I plug this in, there we go. Now I have my I had my headphones plugged in. Now I plugged in the microphone part, and now you can hear my voice a little bit better with I guess now that the tape mechanism isn't overpowering my voice. This is my first camera that I got. Actually, no, it's not my first. My first one was like this little like, I don't even remember what it was called, but it was like a camera that you held in your hand like a phone. I don't even know. But it, like, one of the first ones I got was like this kind of camera that you like hold in your hand with one hand, and it's like a vertical thing, and then you hit record and then it records video. It doesn't record very high quality video. Yeah, things have come a long way since then. But this is one of the cameras I got, I think like 2012 or 2013. Records low definition video, records at standard definition. No, actually no, it records in 720p, but a very, very low end 720p. Like I honestly think it's like standard definition, like 640 by 480. But I don't know. I don't know. It's advertised as HD. But who knows? That's my Canon Vixia HF-R800 that I was talking about. It has really good image stabilization. There's my Canon PowerShot that I used to use to record videos. Wasn't very good. The pictures it took were very nice. It looks pretty good. There's my Sony DCR-TRV103, which is the first high-8 camera that I got. Still works, and that's what I was making comparisons to. That's another camera that I got. I think it's from like 2011, and I got it at a thrift store in South Texas. It's this big thrift store in McAllen, Texas, that has like basically endless rows of just people selling stuff for like super cheap. It's pretty cool. And I got that there. I also got another camera, but that one didn't work. This was the one that did work. It takes decent pictures. The video takes is actually not all that great. Although I would argue that the video from this is at least marginally better than the video that comes out of that. But yeah. Then there's my DSLR, which I was using to record the earlier segment. You can see it's plugged into the wall. That mess of cables. Yeah, that's how that goes. It's currently 70 degrees in here. Yeah. Anyway, I think this microphone thing sounds pretty good. Better than the camera's built-in microphone, because like with the camera's built-in microphone you can hear like me like rustling around with the camera and all that. With this it's a little more isolated. It's more recording my voice than the camera's internal sound. Like even if I do that with Night Shot, it probably wasn't audible very much, if at all, whereas if I did that with the camera's internal microphone, like actually I can show that to you. So if I do this with the camera's internal microphone, since it's in the camera, it can hear all of the things switching into place. Also, you can tell it's stereo because you can do that and it comes over the left channel, and you can do that and it comes over the right channel. Pretty nice. So this is a nice feature, being able to record with an external microphone that actually only one of my cameras offers, and it's that one, and it doesn't even work for most devices. Like in order for it to work, it has to be a powered device, like a device that that is powered by a battery or powered from an external source. So my headphones that I'm using right now, they don't work with that, like at all, which is kind of unfortunate. And really it's like that makes it so it's incompatible with most things, which is kind of unfortunate. Also, my DSLR, that doesn't even have a microphone input or a headphone input. This does have a microphone input, but I think it's not microphone input. Has a headphone input as well, but it doesn't really work right. Yeah, that doesn't have a microphone input or line out. So I have to record, if I want to do external audio, I have to record that separately and then sync it up in post. This camera though, it can record audio directly. It can record external audio directly to it, which I think is pretty nice. That actually only my phone is the only camera I have that can do that, which is nice. Yeah, again, just really demonstrates how well this camera works in comparison to these other ones. Although I guess at the same time, this was like a high-end camera at the time of its release, and none of these are considered high-end cameras. So it'll have some features that like are better than even some of the more modern low-end, or I guess not low-end, but lower-end cameras. Yeah. So the next thing I'm going to try to do is inserting a scene from a VCR, because that's apparently something you can do with this. You can use the jacks on these as inputs and then record to your device. Actually, I can connect that to this camera and see how that works. There's going to be no audio for the following recording because I couldn't find the audio cable for my other camera, and since this video doesn't do audio, work, because I think you may not be able to record to tape from the VTR mode, which is kind of contrary to the record button that I see up here. But maybe it's so you can use those jacks as inputs for streaming over firewire, which that would make some sense, but I can't stream over firewire at the moment, so yeah. Anyway, I think I've accumulated enough test footage for now. I can do some outdoor footage and upload that later, but I'm running out of time to make this video, and I want to get it uploaded this weekend. yeah, I'll probably upload some exterior footage some other day, but not on this video.